All right, welcome everyone. My name is John Spike, and I'm here to talk a little bit about dystopian arcade games as part of our kind of Ready Player One book club. This is kind of an offshoot talking about dystopias, and we're going to talk about games and ways that they could be kind of used in the classroom to fit that dystopian unit too. So what I'm going to do just today is give you a quick intro to four games that have been used in what we like to call the dystopian arcade, so a collection of dystopian games for students to experience and get a feel for what that world feels like. And that's really the goal with each of these games. You're supposed to assume a role. Either you are a person in the dystopia and kind of come to the realization of that. Maybe you are a person helping enforce the dystopia, which is the case in kind of two of these games. And even somebody who's trying to maybe is stuck in the dystopia but still trying to push the message of the oppressors in the dystopia, which will definitely be true in the Republic of Times and somewhat in Papers, Please. So I'm going to just jump into our first game. I'm going to go Papers, Please, Half-Life 2, Every Day the Same Dream, and the Republic of Times. We're going to start with Papers, Please, which I've kind of highlighted on the site here. So Papers, Please is a really interesting game. I'm going to hop into the game here, kind of give you a view of what it looks like. What you do is you actually play the role of a document inspector on the border of a country who is kind of being the dystopia. Other people are trying to get into this world because they think it's utopian. But they actually have some quite draconian rules that they put in place about who can come in, who can't come in. And what you have to do is be kind of the monitor who decides who gets in and who doesn't. Now, your decisions kind of play big roles. If you let the wrong people in, you get punished. But some people, either you may feel compelled to let in due to their story, and some people you might get tricked into letting in who have evil intentions. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic here. So what you have is some rules, and I'll just go ahead and call up the first person. So we call them in up here. And the person comes in, and then they proceed to give you their documentation. You talk to them, ask what their purpose is, they tell you, and you have to pull up their documents and take a look at them, see what they're doing. So she said she'd be here 2 weeks. That seems to check out. She has to enter by this certain date. I can check it against the clock over here. Can look at her picture, make sure it matches up, make sure her date of birth, gender looks correct, make sure everything looks good. And then I go over here, and I've got it's like a stamp of approval or denial. Sometimes you have to get really in detail. You have to go through your rule book, check out, like, do they have the right seals on where they're coming from? So she's coming from Republia. So I have to check out Republia, make sure everything matches up. So she's a True Glorian, which is a good city to be issued from. Looks like everything looks legit here. So I'd pull up my stamps of approve or deny. I'm going to approve her. Give her documents back here. Give them to her. And let her through. Now, I'll be alerted by the game if I made a mistake or not. If I let somebody through that shouldn't have been, I'll get written up if I have anything incorrect. Looks like that was legit, so now I can call the next person through. And so the game continues on like this, but moral situations come up, like somebody who maybe has the poor documentation, but maybe their person just went through who they were with and they need to be with that person, or maybe somebody comes through and says they can change things if you let them through. So some interesting twists occur. So once again, that was Papers, Please. Next game we're taking a look at, I don't actually have playable right now on this computer, but I thought I'd just show you the part that students have played in the dystopia. Half-Life 2, critically acclaimed, called one of the best games ever. Very popular follow-up to Half-Life. It is a first-person shooter, and what I'm going to do is just pull up kind of the what you experience when you first enter this game. There's first kind of some exposition that occurs, and then as you first enter this game, you get off on this train and you enter this new world. And this new world, very dystopian, very stark, very, very familiar viewpoint for students if they've read dystopian literature before, or if they have, if they've, perhaps seen a movie that is dystopian in nature. So you come through, and you see gated entrances, you see this omniscient figure on the screens. There's technology, floating technology that documents who you are. A lot of different things going on here. You see kind of people all dressed the same who clearly are the oppressed masses. And you can kind of see this system where you've got the oppressor in, they've got almost their stormtrooper gear on here. You're being processed as you go through here. Kind of some undertones to World War II and detention centers that's going on here. And so this Half-Life 2 game very much sets the tone for a dystopian world right off the bat. You immediately know what kind of world you're entering. You know who's in charge, and you know you're not one of them. You know you're one of the ones who are definitely trying to subvert this dystopian world. So Half-Life 2 definitely gets you in this mindset. And that's really what good games do. They put you in a particular situation and help you gain a little bit of perspective as to what's happening here. So definitely a game that sets the tone early and often for you. So Half-Life 2 does a great job of setting up a dystopia. So this one you definitely feel you are the person being oppressed. Whereas in Papers, Please, you're the one helping continue on that oppression. All right, next game I've got to play through. This one is a browser-based game. It's called Every Day the Same Dream. And what makes this game very unique is it's not maybe what we think of when we think of traditional dystopia. We picture future world, there's clearly a group oppressing another group. But another common theme of dystopias is that there's this group that isn't aware they're in a dystopia or maybe accepts things and conforms to what the oppressor wants them to do. Now, Every Day the Same Dream does not come off like a dystopia, but it really has some contemporary connections to dystopian literature or media such as The Matrix, Equilibrium, those ideas that people aren't aware of what's going on. I think Aldous Huxley and Brave New World really had a world where people thought everything was going okay. In this game, you wake up, you're this mild-mannered man. It's a very simple game. I mean, not too much to it. You literally just use the arrow keys and spacebar, and you begin your day with your wife there, and you go through the game. And what's interesting about this is you're definitely somebody who's in this dystopian world. Seems like very much like the regular world, but as you go through the game, you discover that the mechanics of the game actually play a role in how you break out of the dystopian world, or how you break out of the conformity of this dystopia that your character slowly realizes that they're in as you're playing this game. What's really genius, and I don't want to say too much to ruin it, but in Every Day the Same Dream, the way the game is designed actually gives the message off of how to break out of dystopia. So you actually, it takes almost a little bit of playing. You play through it a few times, and you think that the game has you stumped, and then the actual gameplay itself and subverting that gameplay is actually what kind of causes you to break out of the dystopia. And like I said, without revealing too much, it's very interesting how it does it, but you kind of go through a day in the life of this man over and over again, and suddenly it kind of is revealed to you. You can see here the monotony, the conformity that's happening. This definitely gives me reminders of kind of the opening scenes of The Matrix, definitely Equilibrium, but a lot of classic dystopias that have the same, we're all acting the same, why are we compelled to do this, and why are we living this uniform lifestyle? A lot of times is we don't realize who the unknown oppressor is. So this is definitely a dystopian game that is very subtle about how you break out of the dystopia. Like I said, that's all I can really say, but it's a really interesting game and a really interesting playthrough. Final game I want to take a look at, is the Republia Times, which is another browser-based game. So both Every Day the Same Dream and Republia Times are free and browser-based. Half-Life 2 would be a download on PC or a console, and Papers, Please is available for a fee on iOS or also on download to a PC. This one, browser-based, like I said, the Republia Times. This one, you're actually playing the role of a editor-in-chief in a dystopia. So you are writing for the Republia Times, and you're the editor who decides what makes it in the paper. And what you actually have to do is keep people reading the paper and keep people loyal to Republia. And so when I go to start work here, what happens is I've got my paper layout here, and articles start coming in the news feed. So you can see down here they're starting to feel like the rebellion is crushed, peace returns to all sectors. I could make that a big article, medium, or small. So I can choose what the focus is. So I want people to be loyal to, so I'm going to say the rebellion's crushed, peace restored. I'm going to make that nice and big. I want to keep people reading, so people love the weather. So I'm going to grab a weather article here, put some weather in there. And then I want people still to favor us, so I'm going to get, whoops, I can't put a big one in there. I'll put a little one here. We have reinforced barriers, and then I'll say we've also broken up some terrorist cells too. So I can start to put together my paper, decide what I want. I can keep reading here too. You also need to not only mix in like pro-Republia messages, but you also have to make it interesting. So sometimes you want to put in celebrity gossip, things like that, sports news. People love to read about that. So you want people both reading and being drawn to the most important pieces, which are pieces about Republia. Now what's really cool about this game is it seems really simple at first, but it starts to get faster paced. You start to have less time to put together a paper, and also there's a twist halfway through that's absolutely brilliant, and the twist has a great message about the idea of dystopias. And once again, I can't say too much about it, but this, again, I love that games can put us in a mindset and give us perspective and get us thinking critically. Like this is very, how do we sway public opinion? What does it take to be persuasive, and how can we use this medium strategically to do so? I'm going to go ahead and end the day and see how I did here too. So you can see I can end the day early, send the piece to print, see how I did. I got more readers and I got more loyalty. So it looks like the government's pretty happy with me. If you start to do poorly, the government starts doing things like taking away your children and restricting your privileges, which is never good. So yeah, you see my family is living normally, which is pretty good. So once again, just talking about the idea of what these games can do. They can really give students a perspective and get them critically thinking about how it must feel to be part of this dystopia and what measures can be taken to break out of it, and also analyze and take a look at, is there anything to our society that's dystopian today? Or are there any situations or scenarios where people are perhaps advancing the cause of a dystopian world or pushing back against it? So Republic of Time is a really great way to do that. Once again, I've got the 4 games here, and there's tons of games out there that have dystopian themes. There's lots out there. One that comes to mind is BioShock. That's a really great dystopian game that's out there right now. There's also things like board games out there that have dystopian themes, like The Resistance or Coup. There's lots of games where students can assume those roles without having a lot of technology, like is mentioned with the board games. So there's options out there to make some of these things happen. But these are 4 that have had a lot of success being paired along with dystopian novels to continue the conversation. So I hope you got something usable, some ideas out of this, and kind of a taste of what this dystopian arcade is.